Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Molly. I'm the maker behind Lefty Knits, and this channel is a place where I share all the crafty things I've been getting up to, which mostly amounts to knitting, as it does today. It's been close to a month, 3-ish weeks since Christmas, and I've been back from Huntsville, Alabama for a little while, where I went during the holidays for my boyfriend to see my boyfriend's family. And I have a lot of things that I've been working on, some things that I got there, some yarn that I got after. I have a variety of things that I want to share with you today. So today we're going to do a traditional podcast episode where I discuss the things that I've been working on, my finished objects, my acquisitions, and my acquisitions come with a few things that are a little bit out of left field. So let's go ahead and get started with my finished objects. So my first finished object is a pair of socks. These are more or less the Dawn socks by Bloom and Create, a sock pattern that I've discussed before. I tested it and I got these yarns, which are from Teal Torch Knits from the Black Squirrel anniversary sale. So these are 3 minis. I don't remember what the colors are called. I'll post them. But I got 2 of this rainbow speckle to make the socks and 1 of each of the others. And I used about 1.5 mini skeins of the rainbow and probably about half of the other 2 as well. So I've worn these socks. I'm trying to not touch them too much. These, like I said, are modeled after the Dawn socks, and I only made 1 little change to the pattern for these. I decided to go with a slip stitch heel flap as opposed to the garter heel flap that the pattern calls for. I have really enjoyed wearing these socks. I really enjoyed making them. I'm excited to have some leftover yarn. I'm not quite certain what I'll do with the leftovers from the mini skeins yet, but I think they'll go well in some stripy socks with some of the other leftovers that I have. I worked on these, I actually think I finished these right before I left to go to Huntsville, because I packed them, I believe, without the ends woven in. So I packed them without the ends woven in with the intention that I'd be able to wear them while I was there. And I was able to, and I did. Highly recommend Teal Torch Knits, and as I've said before, highly recommend the Dawn socks pattern. It's a great template to sort of add your own colors, play around with different yarns. And the 2 contrast colors are only, I think it requires close to like 10 grams of yarn, so about half a mini, depending on your size. I'm sure these are the smallest size. I have pretty small feet. So it's a great way to stash bust, to play around with what you have. And yeah, I highly recommend it. My second finished object is this sock. It does have a partner, but again, these are not clean socks, so I'm trying to not show you too much of my literal dirty laundry. They're made out of Knit Picks Felici in, I think it's either Winter Market or Night Market. I'll put it on the screen. And Bear Stroll Fingering from Knit Picks as the contrast color. I sort of lightly followed the pattern for the Trusty Toe-Up Socks by Tanis Lavallee, which I've used before and I think is absolutely perfect for self-striping yarn. So what I did is I separated out 2, I think they were 18-gram balls of this main color that I matched so that they were exactly, or pretty much close to exactly the same in terms of where they started and finished in the repeat. So I have 2 full repeat of the stripe colorway, and essentially what that amounts to for me, because I have, again, a pretty small foot, these are 56 stitch socks, is 1 repeat of the stripe colors for the foot and 1 for the top, 1 for the leg. So I followed the trusty toe-up sock pattern. I think it's free, but I did add a broken rib pattern a la the Dawn Socks by Bloom and Create, because I just generally like the look of ribbed socks, and I also really like the fit. I find that my socks stretch out. I think that the rib texture helps keep the socks tighter to my foot for a little bit longer. These were my plain project and my early part of Huntsville project. I finished them probably within the first week. I'm not certain, but I find that self-striping toe-up socks are the absolute best thing to work on when you're on the go, especially if you do the legwork to make this striping pattern for both socks equal already. And then just have a little bit of your contrast color and you can just cast on and knit and knit and knit. I did do a forethought heel, so I put in some scrap yarn to add it later. But I was able to basically make my sock one full repeat length, and at that point, once I was running out of this dusty blue yarn, I knit in my scrap yarn, and then I started again with my main yarn and just knit away. It's a project that has minimal leftover yarn to carry around after. It's mostly just whatever contrast color you use, because I do tend to have a little bit extra of that. It's easy to knit a row or two, and you know, you're not going to forget where you are because the pattern is basically the same. I've made these before. These were my London sock project as well. The only thing that changed once I stopped doing the foot and started doing the ankle is that I did start to carry the broken rib pattern around the whole sock. But yeah, these were super easy. The trusty toe-up socks are a great pattern to play around with anything. I think they're a pretty good introduction to toe-up socks, which I tend to slightly prefer top-down socks as a rule, in part because I find that an afterthought heel doesn't fit me quite as well as a heel flap and gusset, but for something like this, I'm willing to forego the fit a little because I can be a little bit obsessive about wanting the stripes to be the exact same length. So I do, for self-striping yarn, like to have an afterthought heel because you don't have to make longer rows that break up the stripes and make them look a little bit distorted, I guess. I think the pattern does come with an option for short row heels, but I have not done that because the only thing I've used this pattern for was for my self-striping yarn, where I want to, like I said, keep the stripes uniform. So yeah, this is my second finished object. I cast these off in Huntsville and wore them around, and I am really happy with them. My next finished object was my Huntsville cast on. Let me make sure that I'm showing you the correct side. So this is my Current Mood shawl by Knit Graffiti. It's super long. This I made with Malabrigo Machita yarn. It's a single ply 100% merino yarn. I think it's superwash, but I'm not certain. And the colors are 3 little pegs for this tan color, Aurora for this sort of medium mauvey pinkish color, and Swamp for the dark purpley color. Now, as you can see, I have not woven in my ends on this or blocked it, which is a little bit of a concern that I have, but I'll come back to that in a moment. I cast this on in Huntsville. I brought it with me thinking that it would be a good project for sitting around. I talked about this a little bit in my last video, but I thought that, you know, it's fingering weight. I thought it would take me a long time to knit. It would keep me occupied. It would be interesting, but not so interesting that I needed to really concentrate on every single row. So it seemed like the perfect pattern to work off of while I was on a 2-week vacation, and I finished it way faster than I thought I would. It was super fun. This is my first shawl ever, I think, and I just really enjoyed it. So it's essentially like 6 repeats of the same section of the shawl in different colors. So you just mix and match the 3 colors that you're using, and you make the same, you repeat the same steps for each section. Now at the end, the pattern calls for you to make some big stripes with all 3 of your colors, which I decided against doing because it's already like taller than me. It's probably like close to 6 feet tall. And I just figured that I liked the look of finishing with a garter stripe ripple pattern similar to the one that you're doing at the beginning. I'm so pleased with it. It's much easier than it looks. It helped me feel way more comfortable with brioche, which I already felt pretty comfortable with. Figuring out how to pick up stitches that are dropped in brioche and fixing mistakes has been a huge thing that I worked on over the past like 2 years or so. I talked in my last episode about my plan to make the September sweater this year. So I've tried to make the September sweater before, and I just was constantly screwing up my brioche then, and my fixes were just not great. And I think that I've done a pretty good job here where I've dropped stitches, and I think anywhere that I can see unevenness, you probably can't. And in any case, I haven't blocked it yet. Blocking this is something that I'm at a little bit of a loss about. I've mentioned before, I live in a small apartment with my boyfriend and our cat. We have very little extra space. So I don't know where I'm gonna find the space to block like a 6-foot shawl in this apartment, especially because things don't dry quickly here, really. I would put it outside over the summer and spring and fall. I blocked a lot of things outside, but you may have heard that we're having historic rains right now in the Bay Area, so it's raining a lot, which is great. We need the rain, but it does limit my options and my ability to block things outside. So I honestly might wait a couple months, which is a huge bummer because I really want to be able to use this, but I just don't see a way. I'm looking around my room as if space will magically appear. I don't really see a way that I'll be able to make. Maybe I might be coming up with an idea. I've never had to block a shawl before. Like, at least sweaters are, you know, roughly the size of my body and not like extremely long. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm gonna do with this. I haven't blocked a couple of my past sweater projects yet. It's just one of the problems of winter and living in a place where space is at a premium and you have to pay a lot for it. So I'll let you know how this goes. I have some storage bins in my closet, which is over there and above my closet. Our closet doesn't go all the way to the ceiling. So I'm thinking I might be able to set it out on a blocking mat, pin it down, and then potentially transfer that up high. This might be the answer that I need. I'll keep you posted on this on the saga of blocking this shawl, and I'm sure you'll see me wearing it in an upcoming video because I couldn't be more excited to put this to use. Final finished object is also not blocked, and it's the textbook cowl by Casey Hurley, because it goes this way. In my Make 9 video, I talked about wanting to make this cowl with yarn from the Cape Cod Yarn Company. It had the mash pea base, and I finished the cowl. Now, I did run out of yarn, so the ribbing at the top is about half the length of the ribbing at the bottom, And as you can see, I did bind off really loosely, so I actually think I might unpick this bind off today and do a tighter one. I think I was worried that it would be too tight, so I was kind of loose when I did that, and I think I actually just need to be tighter. I was a little worried that maybe if I blocked it, it might stretch out, but I think it'll never stretch out enough to make this edge necessary. I literally just cast this off yesterday and I had no extra yarn. This little tail here was the last of my yarn. I mean, I'm thrilled about that. I really wanted to just use this one skein. That's mostly why I knit this cowl. I think it'll be really pretty. It's really hard to see the lace pattern because I haven't blocked it yet, but I think that it'll be really nice to wear. And I'm not that bothered by the fact that the ribbing is much shorter on top, because just like by the nature of how you wear cowls, like they kind of scrunch down in a way where you're not like really scrutinizing the whole cowl pulled out straight and taut at once. So I think it's fine. I'm not really bothered by it. I wouldn't mind if it was a little longer, but I had tried to knit another round of the ribbing and then bind off, and it just wasn't gonna happen. I do really like the way the yarn looks. I think if I were picking yarn specifically for this cowl, I might choose something a little less variegated, but I think with blocking it'll pop pretty well. And I also like the way that this yarn works in this project. I don't feel like I got any like super intense pooling of any colors or like weird striping with the variegation. I think I got a pretty good distribution of the lighter and darker colors throughout the cowl. So I think that this will be great. I have found myself reaching for the cowls that I've made this past year, which were both by Casey, very useful, especially as it's colder and rainier here in the Bay Area than it's maybe been in some past years. It's been great to have something that I can throw on my neck and keep it warm. I know when I lived in Boston, I was obsessed with huge scarves and I wore them all the time. Obviously, it's much colder there, so I don't have a need for something super big that I'm wrapping around my head like 3 times. But a cowl is perfect. So this should be a lot easier to block than my current mood shawl. So I'll probably unpick the bind off and block it today. I don't have much when it comes to whips this episode. I have one whip I can't show you just in case. I'm working on a pair of socks as a gift. My other whip I literally just started. So like I said, I just cast off this current mood. No, that's not the current mood. I just cast off my textbook cowl, and I cast on, like an hour ago, the Botanic Shawl by Stephen West. This yarn is one of my acquisitions, which I guess I'll be going into right after this, but this is Valley Yarn Charlemont in natural. It's, I believe, intended for socks, but it's a merino silk nylon blend, and I thought it would contrast well with this Knit Picks Stroll Gradient in Prickly Pear that I had bought a while back on sale. This shawl is like a big triangle shawl. I will be making it smaller than the pattern calls for because I'm just going to use these 2 skeins. It has an I-cord tab cast on that I found a little bit complicated. Luckily, Steven has made a tutorial of it. Like, I literally was confused as I was trying to pick up stitches around the edge of the bind off on the I-cord, or the cast on the I-cord, and I just googled like Botanic Shawl Stephen West cast on, and I found he has a tutorial video. I think that there might be other parts to the tutorial than just the cast on, but so far that's the only thing I have found myself a little bit vexed by. And the video was very clear. He was great at explaining it, and I am on my way. So I've done like 8 rows. It's gonna grow quite a bit from this corner. I'm really excited about this shawl and my yarn choices for it. I think the Charlemont, which I ordered, I was on the fence about, I guess, splurging very slightly. This was on sale, but it's a little more expensive than just a standard like sock yarn would have been in a natural color, but I thought the silk would be a nice little touch to add to this, and I think it is. So I don't know how well you can see the sheen of this yarn. It has a slight sheen, not too much of one, and it's super soft, and I think it'll have a nice drape. So in terms of acquisitions, I told you about the Valley Yarn Charlemont, and another yarn that I talked about in my last episode that has since arrived is a yarn that I ordered last year, and it is the Yarn Collective Fleurville 4-ply. It's 100% merino. There are 382 yards for 100 grams. It's a Lovecrafts exclusive yarn, I believe. So I mentioned this in my Make 9. This yarn will be the main color of my Quilty by Tiff Nealon with a bear sock yarn, probably Stroll, Bear Stroll by Knit Picks, because I do have some leftover from the socks that I made. Probably use that as the contrast color, and this will be the main color of my Quilty. The colorway that I used is, Hibiscus 602. So this is hopefully the last yarn that I'll be buying for a while. I don't want to set like super harsh goals for myself, but I'm hoping to really focus on stashing down this year prior to moving somewhere in probably 6 or so months, most likely. I am excited that I'll be able to use up some leftovers with the addition of these two skeins here. My next set of acquisitions are from Huntsville. I went to 2 different yarn stores. Now, I spoke in my Make 9 about Sparkle Studio in Low Mill, for those of you who are familiar with the area. Cool little studio within this like large building that's basically set up to be a space for makers and artists to show and sell their work. I got this Bucksnort Alpaca Ranch yarn from Sparkle Studio. Now, this yarn is from a ranch in Grant, Alabama, and it's from the alpaca named Shooter, which is also the name of the colorway. So it's 100% alpaca and 200 yards for 3 ounces. And I spoke about this before. This is likely destined to become a Nevermore blouse by Kadri. I haven't worked very much with 100% alpaca. Part of me wants to make like some sort of shawl out of it, but I'm worried that if I made like a shawl that was just plain white, I would really fuck it up and like spill on it and ruin it. And I do kind of want this yarn to stand on its own. If you are experienced with alpaca yarn and you're like, don't make the Nevermore blouse, Molly, it will not work, please let me know in the comments. I think the Nevermore blouse would look pretty good, like a little bit drapier than the sample, so I think it'll work out. And unfortunately, I only have about 800 yards of this. I bought all 4 skeins that were available with some money generously gifted to me by my boyfriend's mother. If you have suggestions about working with alpaca, let me know. The other place I went was Fiber Artwork in Huntsville. It's a place that I went last time. My boyfriend's mom got me a gift card to there last year, and I did want to pop in again and see what they had. I spent a lot of time sort of wandering around thinking about sweater quantities and what I wanted to buy, but I didn't have like unlimited time to look around the store because that day we were busy in the evening. So I was kind of trying to like run through the store and think about what I wanted, and I didn't quite find anything where I was like, this really has to come home with me, except for a couple things, I guess, that I just enjoyed. So this is a Universal Yarn Bamboo Pop. It is a DK weight yarn that is 50% cotton, 50% bamboo, and there are 292 yards in this 100 gram ball. The colorway I have is called Soothe. It's this like teal and pink color. As you can see, that's a sort of combination that I find speaks to me and that I enjoy. This actually was a last minute grab. I had actually, I think, had my eye on this colorway on like the yarn.com website and other places. Like I said, I really enjoy these combinations and I was intrigued by this yarn. I'm not certain what it'll become, probably a summer top, maybe with some white or something. I'm not certain, but this was kind of a grab where I just saw it there and I walked by it and looked at it, and I sort of made the snap decision to just bring it home with me. The other thing I got was, I'm gonna absolutely butcher this. These last yarns that I got were from Fiber Artwork as well, and these are from the company Le Laine Biscotte. I'm really sorry to all the French speakers out there. They're out of Quebec. I have been following them on the internet. I have looked at their website and thought about buying from them before. I don't think shipping to the US is like terrible from there. They have all these really fun self-striping sock colorways. They have some nice patterns as well. Been familiar with this company for a while, and as I've mentioned before, and I'm sure many people have spoken about as well, I think that this is a pretty common feeling. It's easy for me to kind of justify buying some sock yarn. This colorway, I think, is like butterfly wings or something, translated to butterfly wings. I cannot pronounce this for the life of me. I won't even try. But it's the bee sock, and it is self-striping. It's 85% merino and 15% nylon, and there are 435 yards in a 100 gram hank. Teal is a color that I really enjoy, and I bought this because I thought it looked nice. I wasn't certain what the stripes looked like, but I think I found some photos of this yarn, and I think that it looks really nice, and I'm excited to make some socks out of this, probably for myself. I mean, I think given the size of my feet, I could probably make like 2 pairs of socks for myself out of this. I don't know if I will. I don't know. But yeah, this is a 100 gram hank, so I have plenty of yarn for myself. And on top of it, I grabbed this 50 gram hank. I'm gonna guess this translates into emerald. This is also 85% merino, 15% nylon. It's also the bee sock base. It's just a 50 gram like solid color. And I think that these pair pretty well. If I decide I don't like them together, I'll just use maybe like a black or gray contrast for the cuffs, heels, and toes of this yarn, and save this for something else, maybe even its own pair of socks, because like I said, 50 grams is pretty much enough for me to make my own pair of socks. Those are the yarns I got in Huntsville. I'm excited to use them. I'm hoping that I will be able to cast on with them soon, especially these socks, although I do have a couple other self-striping socks to finish up before I would get to this. My last acquisitions are gifts that I got during the holidays, and I think they are really fun and nice. My boyfriend's brother's girlfriend got me this yarn bowl, and I've never used a yarn bowl before. I am really excited to try it out. I haven't yet because I've been kind of knitting mostly off of this like 3 skein monstrosity, where I had a bunch of cakes, you know, like 2 cakes attached at any given time. I do find that my balls roll like literally all over the place. Even sometimes my cakes do, even though, you know, I'm usually center pulling those and they're a little more stable. She also got me 2 rings that have little feeder spots for yarn. Like you could use both of them to do like color work where you're feeding both yarns with the same hand, like if you're knitting with 2 strands continental, which isn't typically how I do color work, but these rings might change that. I forgot to bring them, but they just are like little metal spirals with like a little stick out like thing to feed the yarn, and those are super cool as well. So that was a great gift. I'm excited to use this. I think the wood is like really beautiful. So thank you, Amanda. And the last thing is this book called Cats in Hats by Sarah Thomas. So this was a gift from my boyfriend's brother, and it is so silly. So it has 30 patterns to knit and crochet. There's this turkey hat. I'm trying to not show you the pattern here. There's a banana hat, a witch hat, just a variety of very silly hats. Oh, here's a traffic cone, although to me it perhaps looks a little more like a candy corn. I think Lola will hate it, but she's gonna get a hat. Of the 30 hats, not quite half are knitted and the other half are crocheted. I'm not that good at crocheting, but I might have to start again to make these hats. I have a cat. My boyfriend has 2 brothers. In between them, there's 3 cats. His mom has a cat. His dad has a cat. I have lots of friends with cats. So I think that the cats that I know will be pretty pissed at me for a little while. I got some yellow yarn to make a banana hat, or probably multiple banana hats, for maybe every cat I know. Here's the banana. I was at the dollar store recently and I got some yellow yarn. I have some brown already. It honestly doesn't feel that bad, the yellow yarn I got at the dollar store. It's 100% acrylic of some kind. I might have to hold it double because I'm looking at this pattern now. The yarn called for is chunky. Now, the one thing that I won't call it like a super concern of this book, but they don't have gauge listed. They have types of yarn like chunky, worsted, etc. They have what size needles you or what size crochet hook you should use. And they tell you like the ear openings and the width of the hat and stuff. So I think I'll have to play around with a little bit. All the yarns are listed here at the very back of the book, and they are, okay, they're all Lion brand yarns. So that actually gives me a good sense of like what yarns I should maybe be looking for. This book was very inspired and very silly. I obviously didn't even know it existed, but thank you, Rich, for this book. If you're watching, we'll definitely be mailing you and many other people cat hats. So that's all I have for you today. I'm really pleased with myself for finishing my current moot shawl, or minus this bind off and blocking, finishing my first project for my Make 9 this year. It obviously is the smallest project that I have on that list, but it still feels good. Really excited to kind of have a hank of yarn I've been holding on to for a while out of my stash now, and like fully formed into a cowl that I'll be wearing a good amount. Thank you so much for watching my channel. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. And if you want to stay up to date on what I'm working on, you can find me on Instagram or TikTok at lefty.knits. I hope you're having a great day and that you're staying warm or cool if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, and I will see you next time.